before we head out on the expedition, I'll go up to the workshop and we'll look at what's been added since we did that last one. Namely, what the Great Jagras gear looks like.
Oh. Stay tough.
Appreciation tickets. A lot of these are quests related to the event going on right now. So let's see. I don't think we have any weapons unlocked. There is the Great Jagras line, which we need to get one upgrade on the Buster Sword in order to get there. The way the tree progression works is, in order to get to another branch, you have to get to the previous tier before you can upgrade it. So in order to get down here to the Great Jagras Blade, we've got to upgrade our Buster Sword once, and then get the materials that we need to come down here. For armor, we unlocked the Kestodon guards, which I guess this is only the arms for this one. That imparts affinity sliding, which increases affinity for a short time after sliding down a slope. The Jagras armor gives speed eating, intimidator. Speed eating allows you to consume power-ups faster. Intimidator keeps the enemies from locking onto you for a bit even after they see you. Palico Rally, increase in Palico attack and defense. Fortify increases attack by 10% and defense by 15% every time you get KO'd, up to 2 times. And then the Jagras Greaves, Speed Crawler, increases movement speed while crouching. Overall, not terribly useful skills. The armor bits do have higher defense base, but it doesn't look like anything we really need to go out of our way to craft at the moment. The Diver's Mask set, this is all related to the event. Marathon Runner. Stamina depletion goes down. Critical Eye, that's pretty useful. That's affinity boost. Quick Sheath. Quick Sheath would be decent to make for Greatsword, since we put our weapon away a lot. Aquatic Expert. Better movement when wading through water, which we haven't really seen yet. And then Diver's Boots. Hunger Resistance, which we saw. Gala Suit. Critical Boost. Increases the damage done by critical hits. That's also pretty useful. Crit Draw, which we're definitely going to want on our armor set at some point for Greatsword. When performing a draw attack, affinity or crit increases by 30%. Since we usually go from our draw attacks into the charge, that means our charge attacks will do more damage. Maximum Might increases affinity when stamina is full. Slinger capacity, more slinger ammo. Divine Blessing has a random chance to reduce the damage you take by a set percentage. At level 1, 15%. So that's not bad. Overall, nothing really that compelling to make right now. We could upgrade stuff. Might not be a bad idea to upgrade our bone armor. Basically, by using the different tiers of armor spheres, we can forge upgrades and increase the defensive strength of our armor. And likewise, we can do that with our weapons as well. Let's see. We need... We'll do one upgrade for now. We'll get it up to 8. Multiplayer. This explains how the multiplayer quest system works. We won't worry about that for now. If you look at the quest board, the assigned ones are story critical quests. We need to progress the main plot line of Monster Hunter World. Optional quests. These are additional quests we can go back and either complete or repeat to gather different pieces of gear, bits. Basically, this is additional quests, and they'll still get filled out as we go along. We could go back and fight the Jagras again, but for now, what we'll do is we'll see where the critical path takes us, because the game wants us to go on an expedition now. Okay, we are back in another recording session for Monster Hunter World, picking back up on the current playthrough with Elta, the Great Sword User. When we last left off, we had completed a few missions for Astera, and the next thing they asked us to do is establish a campsite in the ancient forest. In order to do that, we're going to need to go on an expedition, which functions a little bit differently than the standard quests. But before I do that, I'm going to go eat at the canteen, get my food buffs, and then we'll depart. I'll stick with the meat platter now, go for the attack up. Like the field team leader told us, instead of taking a quest from either the handler or the quest board, for an expedition, it's a bit more like a free roaming type of mode. You basically are allowed to go and run around the different locales, and you're not on a set quest timer. I believe you can get KO'd as many times as you want, and you won't lose anything. And monsters will spawn and despawn around the map as you go. But before we head out, let's take a look at the items that we've got. I gotta remember what all of the shortcuts are. Let's see, restock, auto sort. Let's take all of the things we don't need out of the inventory and put them in our storage box here. One thing I looked at briefly before was the crafting list. When it has the checkbox marked, let's see, yeah, that's auto craft. I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but what that means is when I'm out in the field, if I pick up the items that are required to craft the different things here, as soon as I pick them up, it'll automatically craft them until I'm full at capacity, which is handy. It means I can just grab things on the run and it'll replenish my stock instead of having to stop, open up the crafting prompt, go in and create it manually. That's one thing the older games didn't do. In previous Monster Hunter titles, you had to stop and open up the crafting prompt each time.
Right now, we're in Astera. If you want to go on an expedition, open your world map and choose your destination. For this expedition, we need to head to the ancient forest. We can expand expeditions as we delve further into the new world. Pretty good incentive to explore, right?
What he's talking about here, this is our main map of the entire game. As we proceed through the game and open up different locales, they'll unlock and we'll be able to go and explore them in expedition mode and take quests in those regions. But for now, all we have in Ancient Forest is this particular section. It'll tell you what your targets in each section are that you've discovered as well. There is an undiscovered monster up at the top. We've seen Anjanath, the big pink fire-breathing T-Rex, and we have fought Great Jaguars. We'll go ahead and head to the Ancient Forest and begin the expedition. Alright, this tutorial part basically sums up what I mentioned earlier about the expeditions being more free roaming and not having penalties. And we can leave at any time.
Let's look for the campsite.
If I get to the campsite first, or if you're lost, open up your map or use your scout flies to track me. Whenever you leave the base without signing up for a quest, you'll go on an expedition. There's no time limit or cap on how many times you're allowed to faint, which means you can explore to your heart's content.
Okay, let's take a look at our map.
Your wildlife map keeps track of where you are and where the scout flies are taking you. You can also use it to keep tabs on monsters.
The map feature in Monster Hunter World is a lot more robust than previous games. One thing I like that they did as far as the gameplay is they've made the map sort of a living document. As you can see, the areas that I've been to in the few missions I've done, it marks the different pieces of flora and harvestable nodes or resource points. And by scrolling over them, you can see what they are, and when you're running around on the actual field, it'll pop up as visual indicators on your mini-map in the lower left. Eventually, as we unlock more campsites around in the Ancient Forest, we'll be able to fast travel them too, which is also a super handy feature. The previous games were not designed to be open world like this. The different sections were still numbered, but they were airlocked between loading zones. So if you go from Area 1 to Area 3, you'd have to load in, and with the exception of some shortcuts to get from point A to point B, there was no fast travel. So that means that you had to hoof it everywhere, and getting around was a lot less efficient. It's good to see that Capcom started incorporating a lot of those quality of life adjustments for World, and I'm hoping whatever games they end up doing in the future, especially on other systems like the Switch, will include those quality of life improvements.
Over here. Hello.
This guy's a Linean researcher. You can get things from him. Sometimes quests, sometimes guidance. What he's given us is sort of a side quest to find some of the indigenous creatures, the Lineans. Just like we would track a monster, we can find clues to their whereabouts, and we'll get more information to help in the overall quest progression. Like I mentioned in the previous session, the name of the game in Monster Hunter is to always be keeping an eye out for useful things. Even though you might not realize the use for certain plants or ores or something like that, it's always good to just grab stuff as you're going. Especially since for simple things like herbs, you can grab them on the run. You don't have to stop and gather. Things like the mining nodes and some of the gather points you do. For everything else, since you're running through an area, there's no reason not to be picking up resources. You'll always have a use for stuff in this. This thing right here is a paratoad. I'm not going to hit B here, but if you hit B, what you do is you kick them, and they emit a cloud of paralyzing gas that can paralyze anything in its cloud, including large monsters. These little things are considered one of the most powerful creatures in the game, and they can be used to your advantage when fighting large targets. But in addition to that, we can also capture them. At some point, I'll be able to put indigenous life in my home. Let's see, get some rocks here. So I can have a pet paratoad walking around. Alright, if you look at the map, we're heading up the side of the coast.
Target destination for your scout flies on the map. Hey, partner!
Here's our buddy Anjanath. We ran into Anjanath at the beginning in the cutscene when we were running for the village. This is a brute wyvern. The brute wyverns tend to have sort of like a T-Rex body with large legs and smaller arms. Interestingly enough, most of the life forms you find, Anjanath included, won't aggro to you and start attacking unless you hit them first. As a result, if you just sort of follow after the monsters, you can observe them, gather information on them, figure out where they eat and sleep, and they won't actually attack you. Which is good, because I don't think I'm necessarily geared to take on Anjanath easily right now. I probably could, especially since I'm in expedition mode, but I don't think I'm going to do that just yet. The main reason why we're here isn't to fight Anjanath. It's to scout out the camp. Now let's see.
You can fast travel back to camp simply by selecting it from the wildlife map.
Where is the field leader? A couple more NPCs on the map here will give me quests like the researcher if I talk to him. So I will keep an eye out for them and see what's up when I go past them. Alright, doesn't look like it tells me where the field leader is, so we'll keep exploring and heading towards the upper parts of the map that we haven't explored yet. I believe we just keep winding our way through here, we can pop out in the upper section of the ancient forest. We can also pick up things like footprints for the endemic life in the area. Anjanath leaves footprints, marks on the ground, and it sneezes mucus onto things to mark its territory. The scout flies, since they're not immediately tracking to a specific target, will pick up any remnants that the monsters have left behind, and that'll help guide us. Flash bug. Flash bug creates flash pods, which are a type of carryable ammo for your slinger. When you load a flash pod and then fire it using the same mechanism as everything else, I don't have it equipped right now. It's still got the stones. But if you use a flash pod, it functions like a flashbang and can blind and stun enemies. Some things that you fight later, especially airborne monsters like the Rathalos, are very weak to being flashed out of the air. Therefore, it's a good idea to always pick up flash bugs everywhere you see them and just stockpile a steady supply of flash pods for use. They're very handy, one of the most handy slinger types in the game.